Claire is an associate professor of ethnomusicology at the music department of the Faculty of Human Ecology at University Putra, Malaysia. Prior to this, she taught at the music department of University Pendidikan, Sultan Idris, and held appointments as the deputy dean there and chief editor of the Malaysian Journal of Music. So Claire has been working in the last few years with the Orang Asli community in developing methodologies for transmission to the young people.
Good afternoon, everyone. My presentation has many videos and stories and talks about my reflection throughout. So this type of writing is only barely beginning to be accepted as research in the academia. Every ethnomusicologist advocating for musical sustainability faces different types of issues arising from power struggles between the researcher, culture bearers, and participants. While the applied ethnomusicology, culturally responsive methodology, and participatory action research approaches provide fundamental guidelines, the researcher will still encounter diverse problems that branch out like rhizomes to complicate and challenge the researcher's advocacy attempts. The Mah Meri is one among 18 indigenous groups known collectively as the Orang Asli of Malaysia. They live on Carey Island, Selangor. The Mah Meri population is 4,193 among 34 million people in Malaysia in the 2023 census. This paper highlights how we, I use the term we because the paper was based on group research, integrated the three methodologies stated above to navigate issues encountered during 6 workshops with 5 Mah Meri children and 5 teenage participants in Kampung Sungai Bumbun, Carey Island. The Mah Meri live in villages nestled among oil palm estates that were once rich mangrove forests. The workshops were conducted between February and March 2024 and led towards the participants' performance in their annual Ari Moyang, or Ancestral Day, on 10th of March 2024. The research team collaborated with the culture bearers of Kelompok Toko on this project, Mazna Unyan, Julida Uju, and Gali Adam. Applied ethnomusicology emphasizes on the bottom-up approach, collaboration between culture bearers and researchers, as well as cultivating ownership among the participants on their cultural heritage. Researchers act as facilitators who respect and recognize the local resources, experiences, and expertise of the culture bearers and participants. In the culturally responsive methodology, Berryman et al. Outlines 6 guidelines. Mutual respect and humility between the researcher and participants, interactive dialogic pedagogy, collaborative work, co-creation and co-learning between researcher and participants, community involvement and support, participant sense of ownership and creation, indigenous knowledge, language, and heritage. The participatory action research, which involves planning, action, observation, and reflection, was utilized to monitor our methodology. In discussing our responses, we expose ourselves to what Mendro terms as vulnerabilities, however, not as corollary for weakness or deficit, but as a state of being where our personal and professional selves are revealed and made permeable. The purpose is not to indulge in the researcher's experience of vulnerability, but to pragmatically acknowledge that vulnerabilities and uncertainties exist, and practical measures can be taken to overcome the barriers caused by these vulnerabilities. In this paper, I will critically reflect on our conscious attempts in mobilizing CRM. In the first workshop, we engaged the participants in learning Song of Jaboy, the Mah Meri's signature song. They learned the song text from us through rote learning. To immerse in the understanding of the song text, Mazna told the story of Jaboy, a mystical ancestor ancestral spirit that had an upside-down nose and walks backward. It hides under a palas tree when it rains because it's afraid that water will drip into its nose. In order to develop each child's ownership of Jaboy, we asked them to act out their imagination of Jaboy. However, the participants who had no theatrical training could not dramatize or stylize the character well. We decided on an alternative approach to immersing into Jaboy. The participants were then asked to draw their masked version of Jaboy. At this stage, I may have made the mistake of encouraging them to recall movements of their favorite cartoon characters. What ensued was that the participants excitedly incorporated Naruto, Sasuke, Sigma, Satomo, and Titan into the mask. We then asked them to act out their version of Jaboy, which eventually became an anime-nized version of Jaboy. Yeah. Apa nama Jaboy sini? Sigma. Only one participant remained faithful to Carey Island, naming his mask Jaboy Pulau Carey, Jaboy of Carey Island. During the workshop, I kept thinking about whether I should draw examples from outside for the children. I was weary about influencing their original ideas, yet using examples was an effective way to trigger ideas. In addition, I noted that the children could imitate stylized actions, but they were not able to come up with their own yet. Furthermore, although we embraced contemporary ideas into Mah Meri culture, we felt that the participants had little knowledge and appreciation of how their myths and music. In the next workshops, we embarked on games and activities that incorporated knowledge about their natural environment and cultural heritage. Next. Before the 2024 workshops, I had two series of workshops with the Mah Meri children in 2022 and 2023. A primary challenge in these workshops was managing the entry and exit points of the songs. Traditionally, Mah Meri music was performed in a ritual context without fixed entries or exits. Singers join and leave at their discretion. By asking the children to count beats between verses and choruses to signal entries and exits, I was introducing a new practice. After 2 years of workshops, the children became aware of these entry and exit issues. I felt that it was time that I empowered them into ownership of their own decision by determining how they could enter and exit. Initially, I helped them get coordinated with Masna reprimanding loudly when the participants made mistakes. Later, when they messed up again, Ipo the oldest boy suggested another signal for an ending. The participants soon adopted Ipo's counting signal. The participants, during Ari Moyang, however, when the participants sang together with the elder musicians, they readjusted to the elders' musical aura, aesthetics, and energy. Oh well, the participants are able to merge with the flow depending on context. Over the course of 3 years of workshops, I noticed that the Mah Meri culture bearers and participants did not adhere to any fixed ways of solving musical problems. Their methods were spontaneous and flexible. Therefore, my primary concern reverted not to sticking to one solution, but rather ensuring that the children recognize the issues and develop various strategies to addressing musical challenges. Last reflection. During the workshops, we tried to engage the Mah Meri working adult youth aged between 20 to 30 who had their own live band to collaborate with our children participants in creating a modern version of their traditional songs. Live band has already replaced traditional music in many Aurang villages. While the youth were interested, we always had issues finding a time suitable for all of us to rehearse. Even though we tried to arrange for night practices, we didn't get a collective response from the band members through WhatsApp. Initially, this frustrated the researchers. However, the band members would sporadically emerge during some of our workshops to observe and help out. Prior to this, we also heard that 2 of the children participants playing on their seniors' drum set and noticed that they had musical talents. They were self-taught and able to improvise rhythmic accompaniment to traditional music. So we decided to bring in the guitar, bass, and drum set teacher to teach the children some basics. We also created a template for the participants to play over. During some of the workshops, the adult youth participated and provided support for the children.
1, 2, 3, go, 1.
This is the eldest story. Ivan was skillful at picking the drum rhythm, and Atap picked up the bass quickly. And after 3 workshops with our co-researchers and invited instructors, while we had not been able to identify a lead singer, Ating and Awal sang enthusiastically when the mic was passed to them. Throughout the whole process, I noted that the children had a sharing culture. No one wanted to emerge as the main singer or artist. In singing, they passed the mic to one another to sing different verses. Eventually, we let them share the singing during Ari Moyang, even though Ating was not quite in tune. During Ari 2024, for the first time, the Mah Meri elder musicians allowed the band to play a modern version of Jaboy song, accompanied by a dance created by the Mah Meri teenage girls themselves. One of the highlights of this event was the barriers between traditional music and live band music in the village was broken. Traditional and contemporary versions of Jaboy was performed for the first time. And one of the most amazing events occurred during Arimoya. Before this, we encouraged the adult youth band to perform too. The culture bearers had no objection and even asked us to help polish the youth band. During Arimoya, the young adults debuted a new song they had already in the making before we came. Since the space to perform live band version of traditional new songs had been broken and been opened, the youth played their modern version of Arimoya during this ritual. Conclusion. During the series of workshops from 2022 to 2024, I have come to believe that although having structured aims, methods, and outcomes for workshop helped us to remain organized, ironically, it was the ability to let go of structure that creative ideas sprout out. Although we want to quickly solve issues through immediate fixes, sometimes problems require a lengthier time to settle itself. After 2 Arimoya festivals, working on entry and exits, the children were able to discuss this together and make their own decisions. Second, although we wanted the children to create their own version of Song of Jaboy, we had to provide a template with our musical aesthetics at this initial stage. We cannot expect the children to create without prior guide. In addition, it was very important that the culture bearers attended and provided support and input throughout these workshops, commenting and laughing over the children singing and dancing. I believe bridging the intergenerational gap as well as having communication between researchers and culture bearers are essential for nurturing new artistic expressions. An interactive ecosystem that encourages collaboration and discussion is integral to advocacy. I'm not done yet. Okay. I'm starting to believe that sustainability is not so much about sustaining traditional music, it is about fostering the collaboration between different groups of musicians. Our workshops provided a platform for opportunities, such as involving musicians from various backgrounds, which encouraged the Mah Meri youth adults to develop their own interpretations. In essence, I think the applied ethnomusicologists should not always fear that their actions would diminish the authenticity and natural evolution of musical expressions among the people. However, they should bear in mind the 3 methods discussed in this paper. I now see that sustainability is not just about music, but about celebrating the synergy between researchers, culture bearers, and participants, which leads to innovative musical concepts. That said, this has been a Mah Meri tradition for the longest time. For I remember informants telling me stories of cultural exchanges between the Mah Meri from Carey Island with the Mah Meri on the mainland, and the Mah Meri's engagements in playing at Malay weddings, and their planned activities to paddle their boats to watch the Chinese opera on the mainland. I would like to end this presentation with words of the late Mental Wood. Success in fieldwork depends on the combination of 3 things: technical know-how, substantive knowledge of subject, and a great sensitivity to values and feelings of other human beings. This listed in inverse order of importance. Perhaps our role in advocacy lies not in sustaining the whole, but establishing a platform for interaction, support, and interest which fosters new creations rhizoming from the past into the present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. I'm sure you have many questions. questions, right? We have 10 minutes. Please state your name and affiliation before you ask your question. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Hello, my name is Juliana from University Pacific in the US. I was wondering, do you know why the students gravitated more towards the electric and modern instruments, and also how do you feel about that? Because it's definitely not traditional, and it's a different way of preserving the tradition, but yes.
Well, the live band musicians is actually now very much a part of the orang asli culture. Their favorite pastimes is actually karaokeing, dangdut, and joget songs. They're very good at it, okay, better than me. And yeah, they have live bands that perform Malay joget songs and Malay pop songs and Indonesian pop songs. It's just that the traditional music is not being passed on. There's a lack of interest in the traditional music. So we thought that it would be relevant if we could, fuse these two, combining what is relevant to them with what we think that it's good for them to, continue singing.
Dr. Paul.
Hi Claire, Natapon from Thammasat University. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I have two quick questions for you. You stated at the beginning of your presentation about your method not rarely being considered as research, right? So I wonder if you could elaborate on that a little bit. And my second question is, is about talking about the culturally responsive research, right? I wonder how you situate yourself with having in mind all these sometimes difficult power relations as a researcher with the interlocutor. So I'm wondering how do you place yourself, how do you position yourself while thinking about these methods in your research? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. So if you know, this kind of research is called reflexive-based research, and in the performers call it practice-led research, and the music educators call it action-based research. Somehow, if you submit your article to a journal, it gets a lot of issues because they don't see your own practice as research. They still don't accept the researcher as a form of research. So, but this is breaking grounds. The performers are starting to do reflective practice-based research, and they are actually having a lot of problems talking about themselves. So yes, this is a big issue in journal acceptance and journal reviewers' acceptance of our thoughts. Second, wow, that is a big question about how I navigate myself. I guess it's really on journaling. Every night I have to force myself to go back and write and review my videos, and actually write before I have to be very disciplined in writing and thinking about what I'm doing, and also actually talking to Mazda, the culture director, a lot about this, talking to my co-researchers, and actually talking to anyone that I can find that can give me an opinion. Yeah. Reflexivity, reflection.
Right, any more questions? We have 5 more minutes. Okay, Mercedes.
Follow up to that, I think, in terms of not being, being careful of thinking of yourself as a researcher in this context. In terms of IRB, if you're working with kids, right, you really have to submit a formal plan because these are people who are powerless to refuse and be put in a very can be a dangerous situation depending on the kind of research questions you ask, so forth and so on. So I think in that context, she's very careful not to let the colors of a researcher That's one of the reasons I can think of. Because in the States, you have to really submit a formal plan.
Oh yes, yeah, I know in the States it's really very strict, but in Malaysia they are coming up onto us about this. So we actually have to take papers to fill in on our ethical concerns when we are dealing with children. It's slowly cropping up on us now. Yes.
Please state your name and affiliation.
Paul, Mah Meri, Cosmet from the University of Hawaii in Manoa. Question, just a short question. After the workshops, what is now happening with the connections? How are they fostered? Are they still continuing? Are they strong? Or are there future projects? And mainly, is then the goal is to have a researcher just foster them and be removed afterwards when the ecosystem is healthy?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I was going to talk about how the researcher have to navigate the academia with their research. So at one time I was thinking I need to continue doing this. I was like pressuring myself, I can't stop. But after a while I thought that, hey, maybe just let things be. We are coming back at the end of the year the next year to do the research. I think it's continuity and continuous support, but not having really fixed visions and ideas that we have to achieve. I think it's just more continuous support and being there for them. Yeah, in whatever ways that are opportunities. For example, I was just thinking of one that if I do a recording workshop in the future, I might actually bring some of the kids to follow me to record the other orang asli groups, so they actually learn how to do the audio recordings themselves. I think these are ideas that will come along the way. Just can't think of it in the future sometimes. It just comes. Yeah.
Yeah, I just like to add that this type of research is quite important in Malaysia, because the orang asli and the original peoples here, they are real minority and they are marginalized. So their children are forced to go to primary and secondary schools like other ordinary children. And many of them actually cannot fit into the education system because it's totally different from the way that they have been educated in the villages. So I think that this work that Claire is doing is very, very important, and maybe in the near future we can add that into the school curriculum. Especially if there are special schools being set up for the orang asli kids. Yeah. So thank you very much, Claire. Our next speaker is also talking about gifted music education in Malaysia.